Today I'm going to teach you how to perform a push-up with proper technique, how to perform a push-up safely, and how to modify / progress to achieve your very first push-up. Okay, step number one, we have the high plank position, so our starting position. So first things first, let's talk about the distance between our hands. So standard push-up width is having the hands just outside of the shoulders. Now, let's talk about the shoulders and shoulder positioning next. So we want to have the shoulders and the actual joint externally rotated as opposed to internally rotated. So I've seen this 100 times where people turn their hands inwards, which I think is to alleviate pressure on the wrists. But again, it puts that shoulder in internal rotation, which is a weaker, less stable position. So we want to externally rotate that shoulder. That does not mean that we have to turn our hands outward. But what that does mean is that having the fingers pointed straight ahead, we turn the pits of our elbows forward, which as you can see, externally rotates that shoulder, putting it in a much more stable, stronger position. So externally rotating the shoulders, and then we also want to protract the shoulders. So we do not want to have our shoulders retracted like this, holding that position. We want to protract the shoulders by pressing up through those shoulders with straight arms. Next thing we'll talk about are the hips. So we do not want to be in anterior tilt like this. So tipping those hips forward. What we want to do is be in a neutral hip position or in a slight posterior tilt. So we have the pits of the elbows turned forward, shoulders directly over the wrists. We're going to protract those shoulders and we're going to tuck those abs into that neutral / posterior pelvic tilt. The next thing, feet are together. I want you to squeeze your glutes and flex your quads. So from the tips of my toes all the way to the tips of my fingers, my body is rigid, strong, ready for step two. Step two, we have the lowering phase of the push-up. So key points here. I want you to maintain the external rotation of the shoulder. We often see people flaring their elbows out when doing push-ups or different horizontal pressing variations. What this does is it puts the shoulder in a weaker, less stable position, as I stated earlier. People choose to do this because it does target the chest a little bit more, as it does remove some of the anterior delt and tricep out of the equation. But again, puts the shoulder in a weaker, less stable position, so you're more prone to injury when you press this way. So I choose to press with more of the externally rotated shoulder. So my golden rule here is with shoulder positioning and elbow positioning is to never have the elbow go past 45. So 0 degrees against the body, 90 degrees with the elbow flared. 45 degrees I find to be the sweet spot, which allows me to still get some good chest work in and chest focused work in, along with keeping that external rotation of the shoulder, keeping those shoulders in a nice, strong, stable position. The second piece of this and second key point is we want to go slightly forwards and down when we lower down into that push-up. So we don't want to just drop straight down. So we're here. We don't want to just drop straight down like this. My shoulders are shrugged. It kind of forces the elbows to flare out, puts the shoulders in kind of a weird position. So again, we're here, shoulders protracted, core braced, elbows or pits of the elbows pointed forward, slightly forwards and down, keeping those elbows at a 45, lowering down to our chest lightly touches the floor. In step number three, we press up out of the bottom of that push-up. Easier said than done, right? This is where people struggle the most. So key points here, it's really important that we maintain solid plank position. So squeeze your abs, squeeze your glutes to press up, because we do not want to deviate from that plank position like so. So really lock those hips in, squeeze your core, press through the palms of your hands and press through your chest, squeezing the core all the way to the top into that high plank position. In step four, we put it all together. So it's important that you guys do not just slam down with sloppy technique like this, doing these short reps. Really focus on slow, controlled movement to really build real, true body weight strength and control. So all of our key points are in place. Lower down with control to the chest lightly touches, then press back up. So this is the tempo and control I want to see on your push-ups. Do not worry about getting a million reps in. Focus on proper technique to really build that true push-up strength. Now, there are a number of different exercises that we can use to modify and or progress to build the proper strength to perform a full range of motion push-up. The first way, this is not the best modification, but the way we can modify is by going from the knees. So keeping all those upper body principles in place, we're in that kneeling position, shoulders over the wrists, core is braced, good hip positioning, and then we lower down with control and then press back up through the chest. Modification number 2, we have the push-up negative. So I find this variation to be a little bit more effective in building strength to achieving the full range of motion push-up than the push-up from the knees. So number 1, this puts us in a high plank position. So this more closely is going to mimic the actual push-up position where we're using the majority of our body weight. Number 2, we have that slow, controlled negative, which creates a ton of force, more force production than we would on the up phase of a push-up. So we're gonna build a ton of strength the slower that we lower down into the bottom of that push-up. So all of our key points in place: external rotation of the shoulders, protraction, core is tight, glutes are tight, slightly forward and down, lower down as slowly as you possibly can, all the way down to the bottom, then go from the knees, press back up, and repeat. In modification number 3, we're gonna be using an elevated surface. So the golden rule here is the higher this surface is, the easier the push-up is going to be. So you can start high up, achieve that full range of motion, perfect technique, and you can slowly start to lower that elevated surface down to get closer and closer to the floor, getting you that much closer to performing a full range of motion push-up on the ground. So all of our same principles in place, just using the elevated surface, core is braced, perfect technique on every single rep. All right, guys, I kept this video as straightforward and as simple as possible. If you found this video useful, if you found that you're getting closer to achieving that full range of motion push-up, let me know in the comments. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys soon.